Hudson Mohawke, the producer for Good Music as well as DJ from
Hmm.
many years ago. It's been quite a while since we got an album, a proper album from him. Finally dropped Cry Sugar, his return to the album format. And what a what a listening experience this was. I guess as someone that is definitely plugged into rap music and good music in particular, were you excited to have Hudson Mohawke back making albums?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really think about Hudson Mohawke too much for his hip hop work. He's worked with tons of people, most famously Kanye, previously signed to Good Music, as you said. And you can look at his credits there. He's, co-producer on Mercy. I think he did 4 Pablo songs, random other stuff, random Drake songs, ASAP Rocky songs, etc. But I feel like none of those moments really stand out nearly as much as his actual producing work as an artist. Most famously, I'd say, as one half of the EDM duo Tonight,
Mhm.
which was really formative in the first half of the 2010s when trap music in particular was at the forefront of EDM, kind of in the afterburners of dubstep, I guess. And we talked about Tonight when they had that comeback EP2 in at the end of 2019. And Hudson Mohawke's definitely much more prolific than his collaborator in Tonight there, Lunas, of course. But it still has been actually 7 years since his last proper studio solo album. He did, of course, release 3 archival mixtapes of old material in 2020, which we did not touch on. So it's still the first time I think most people are probably going to be checking back in on a HUDMO release in some time. And, as a fan of Tonight, as a fan of that now very dated and old school trap EDM, to hear this album Cry Sugar, it definitely met my expectations for just how wild and out there it was. It definitely sounds like it was made by someone who is one half of Tonight, because there's just some crazy shit, OD samples, all kinds of noise, man. It's really hard to, I think, explain a lot of what's going on in Cry Sugar, but it was also, I think, really interesting because of that.
Yeah, I think the word that first came to mind for me was maximalist. I mean, this is everything all at once, all the time. And it is at some points incredibly overwhelming, at other points super groovy, and you really hear that magic that kind of comes from the group Tonight. I think when you think of Tonight, you kind of think of a song like Higher Ground, one of the bigger hits from them. And there's a couple of moments on here that definitely approach that, but also just like how like beautiful the album felt at other points. And I was, I think the first like couple songs, I was kind of just like trying to make sense of what I was listening to. And then for me, the album really takes off once the song Dance Forever drops. And it's just this like super funky, like club uh bounce song. And I freaking loved that song. And then from there, that's probably my favorite run there. Dance Forever, Bow, Is It Supposed, and Lonely Days. I thought those 4 songs in a row really like pulled me into the second half of the album, and I was just like along for the ride at that point. What was your just the overall experience listening? Because it is a little like out there for sure.
Yeah, I think what probably stood out as any kind of through line. It's really hard to describe anything like that, but there was, I think, a pretty frequent use of background vocalists or sample vocals of some kind. Nothing super famous that certainly couldn't place any of the samples, but that kind of stuff I think was really cool, because sometimes he would really pitch down these vocals, other times he would just intersperse stuff for half the song. It's kind of all over the place. But I think you just kind of get all kinds of uh, like all kinds of vibes, honestly, all kinds of drums, OD drums, minimalist drums. It's kind of the whole spectrum. And I think the moments that reminded me of Tonight, those really big maximalist moments that are you know, encouraging you to just blast out your speaker, blast out your car window. That's probably the stuff that I think is most fun to revisit. Perhaps because it's vaguely familiar, but stuff like Intentions really brought me back to Tonight. Uh, Behold, Is It Supposed, which you mentioned as well, those drums there. I think for me though, I think the one moment where I was felt like I was really taken to a place would be on one of the singles, Big Stan,
Hmm.
where it starts out and it's almost like it felt like to me like an organ at like a baseball game, and then he like fried the organ into like Super Mario Brothers or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely had like an old school like Nintendo type vibe, and then it has like the laser sound kind of coming over it. It's pretty wild for sure. Um, yeah, I think for me, like I went back and listened to some of the earlier tracks on the album again after listening through because I felt like I kind of got more of a sense of what he was going for, and I was really impressed with intentions. In the beginning, I think it's like probably the most like disco-y 80s sounding track on the whole thing. But then it almost sounds like a Gex song at points because there's
Mm.
so much distortion. There's so much just like pitching up these like instruments and making it almost sound like you're just like tapping on a computer at points. Like I don't even know how to like describe some of the sounds that come out of it. But it all kind of works and kind of going along with just like this like maximalist view like some of the music videos that have come out for this are just absolutely insane. I think it's one of the singles. I think he actually mixed a bunch of them together and put like a bunch of the tracks, but it has like a Mad TV or Mad Magazine type feel at the end of it, where like these faces are like distorted and shifting. And then some of the videos that he has for like the background of these things, like Intentions, is like a CGI Johnny Depp in the back of a car with the hood down, and he's just like in between all these like girls with these like weird images coming around, and it's like this hyper realistic, super like almost like psychedelic in a sense, even though this music really isn't psychedelic. And I guess like, what do you think he was like trying to like talk about in this album, or what was he trying to get across in your
Yeah, I
perspective?
have no idea, but it was interesting to me. I think that in the EDM world of 100 Gex, where Gex is by no means the most popular electronic act these days, but they're one of the most talked about, at least online, at least by the critical community. And I didn't necessarily hear hyperpop on Cry Sugar. And I'd be very curious to see what Hudson Mohawke's spin on hyperpop would be, because hyperpop is a different side of that maximalist in your face coin for
Right.
EDM music. So to me, the point of view to me was, I think, just that he actually had like a kind of an original vision and didn't just chase the EDM trend of the last 2 3 years. So beyond that, though, it's really hard to say. I think there's just so many like sounds and switch ups and genre styles and mashups that you really need to sit with this album and listen to it a lot to, I think, really try and process it at a deeper level. So
Yeah,
I don't think I'm there yet.
I think to your point, there's he's going for so much on this, and he does all of it like fairly well. Like I don't know if I love every single song on here, but probably one of my favorite songs off this that I came back to a few times was Lonely Days, which really reminded me of Porter Robinson in a lot of senses, kind of that more like toned down, like sad boy feel, but it is so beautiful. And the second half, he really pulls in like an orchestra almost in a sense, orchestra of like uh, I don't know, electronic sounds, and it's really, really, I think like thought provoking, emotion provoking, which I really loved. And to have that just a few songs after a song like Dance Forever, even Bow, it was like such a switch up moment in the album that I thought was really, really impressive. So I don't know. I think this was just a nice return, and if he feels like he's got something to say, so I hope he continues to make music for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, he seems to have many interests outside of music as well, but he also will probably continue to come back, because I feel like when you're this kind of producer and you've been at it for over 10 years, that's just how you are as an artist. So I have no doubt we'll hear him again, but I would certainly love a full length Tonight album, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't either. Anyways, we'll be adding a song onto our Nostalgia Best of 2021 playlist.